Hello everybody, I am pleased to be joined by Andrew Mangan, also known as Arseblog. Now, Andrew is most famous for starting Arseblog in 2002. He's written a blog more or less every single day since 2002 to date. He has written 2 books, So Patty Got Up, together. Both are available in the Google Bookstore. He's also known as a voiceover artist, and today we'll be asking several questions taken from Reddit, some of my own, and in the chat, about his life, his career, a little bit of Arsenal, and a little bit of gaming, since we're playing FIFA and all. Pleased to have you here, Andrew.
Oh, good to be here. It's a cool, weird, modern thing, isn't it, to do something like this?
Oh yeah.
Certainly, when I started Arseblog, I never thought I'd be sitting here playing a football video game against somebody in Chicago, answering questions from people from Reddit and whatever, Twitch and all that just didn't exist back then. So, yeah. Anyway, glad to be here.
The first game of the season between
this preseason friendly Unai Emery's first game in charge.
And there should be many great seasons to come.
Unai versus Unai.
Might tell us a bit more about
Unai versus Arsene.
Referee for today's game is Laurent Glacier.
Alright, so the first part of the interview, we're going to start with just talking about your life, because honestly, all these years, you haven't really talked about it much, so I'm sure a lot of people would like to know. What was it like growing up as a child?
I think that's a very broad question, isn't it?
Yeah, just in general. You don't need to get down to specifics. Like, was it overall, would you say it's a good childhood, a bad childhood, average?
Oh, I would say, yeah, good. Like, no terrible traumas or anything to talk about. Fairly normal, apart from, I lived in a castle for a while. That was cool.
That's pretty unique. Any history behind that castle, or just?
Yeah, it was a hotel. My dad was the manager of the hotel, and we lived there. So that was in England. But yeah, fairly normal, I guess, all things considered.
Terrific game in prospect here.
Cool. Now this next question's from Reddit. This is from Zenovus Gamer. He wanted to know, how do you push through your worst times, like in your life, career, all things? What keeps you motivated to keep going?
Yeah, I don't. It's difficult to say that I've had. Look, everybody has their ups and downs, but worst times, I don't know. You just got to get up in the morning and go again, don't you? Some days are better than others. So that's kind of it, I mean, in terms of Arseblog, sometimes the worst times for Arsenal are the most interesting things to write about,
Right.
So,
especially given the even current examples with everything Mesut Ozil's been going through.
Well, yeah, maybe, but just from the point of view of the team, it's sometimes more interesting to write about a defeat than a victory,
So the next question is from Galpin. He was wondering, what was your reasoning for moving to Spain? You've mentioned living in Barcelona many times throughout the podcast and blogs.
Because we really wanted to. It was a great place to live and a great place to, just a great place to live. And when you lived in Ireland all your life, a bit of sunshine is quite welcome.
Ooh.
Oh shit!
Check.
Okay. Good goal.
Thank you.
But yeah, when you have a chance to do something in your in your late 20s, early 30s, it's worth having a go, because I don't know, sometimes if you don't do something, you just have regrets that you didn't do it. It's better to give it a go, and if it doesn't work, you can always come back home or whatever. But it'd be better for that than to be sitting there going, I wish I'd done that,
So is there something specific about Barcelona that piqued your interest over the rest of Europe?
Yeah.
Was it just the sunshine, the football culture in Barcelona, maybe?
Been on holidays there and really liked it, so it was that, really, to be honest. It was just, we loved the place and decided that was where we wanted to go, and it's a beautiful place anyway. I don't know if you've been or if you...
No.
Well, here comes the...
So I'll be breaking off from your life sometimes to answer some questions that chat's been asking. Someone's asking, which Arsenal player, past or present, would you compare your own football playing style to?
I don't know anyone specifically, but there's probably a good reason why I have a soft spot for Philippe Senderos. You know, I've always played as a centre half. Was never the quickest, but honest, and tried my best. So that might be a good comparison.
I think we can all relate to Philippe a little bit in our own way.
For sure.
Okay, so this next question, I actually don't know the answer to. Where does your hatred from Phil Collins originate from?
Childhood.
There's that childhood trauma we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah. You're going to make me remember things I don't want to remember. I just always hated the song In the Air Tonight.
Uh-huh.
And it just sort of grew from there. And it's, you know, I think a lot of people will realize that it is kind of a comedy thing, you know? So, yeah, it's just he becomes like a figure of fun in some ways. But I do actually hate him as well, so...
Yeah, so Phil, I know you're listening. Andrew would love some free tickets.
Oh, yeah, I would, yeah. Something to light the fire with.
Next question is from M.A. Tingle. Now, if you could have dinner with any person on Earth, not football or Arsenal related, who would it be and why?
Any person on Earth. Right.
We'll do past or present, living or dead. Oof.
Oh. Past or present, living or dead. I think David Bowie. David Bowie would be a cool guy to have dinner with, because he was always like my musical hero, and yeah, he's a smart guy obviously as well. So you have good conversation and interesting chats with David Bowie. Anyone alive right now? I don't know. It's hard. I think the older you get, the less hero worship you have for people or whatever. We shouldn't say that people aren't interesting, but you're just like, fuck, I couldn't be arsed.
I don't know about that one, Andrew. Have you seen that photo with you and Robert Pires? The expression you have on your face?
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I suppose Robert Pires would be a good choice as well. Yeah. I think Arsene Wenger. I'd like to have dinner with Arsene Wenger as well, just to sit down and ask him a lot of stuff about what happened and, you know, his entire career at Arsenal. I think that'd be some fascinating stuff.
Kolasinac? No. Well, you know, dinner with Arsene, you know, he'd say a whole lot, but he'd somehow leave you satisfied without fully answering your question, because I'm sure a lot of people would get into the nitty-gritty stuff of his career.
What are you doing, Petr Cech?
Okay, so this one comes from Galpin again. Are your wife and family Gooners? Do they watch or care about the results in any way? Not relating to you, obviously, because I know for me, a lot of the family watches for my sake, but are they Arsenal fans in their own right?
No, they're not. They're not Arsenal fans, but they do keep a close eye on what happens, and I think they understand that if Arsenal do well, if it's a good weekend for Arsenal, you know, my mood is generally a bit better. So they have an interest in it from that point of view, which isn't to say I go around smashing up the house or anything if we lose, you know.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you say Arsenal results affect you, like your day-to-day mood?
I think probably 5, to be honest. It used to be higher. It used to be higher, but I don't know if it's because everything changed or we got used to things under Arsene so much, you know. But the results didn't bother me personally so much, but it was more about like, how am I going to write about this and how am I going to deal with this on the blog, you know. Those were the things that worried me more than my own fucking hell. more than my own feelings about results, you know. Xhaka shooting from miles out. Get out of here.
Right, I know it's a bit of a running joke now, especially during the last season, that you and James could just take any podcast from the last 4 or 5 years or so, and it would sound relatively the same. Did it feel like that for you guys recording it? Like you were, okay, time to talk about us losing after halftime again, or was it new every single time?
Obviously, there were things that were.
Oh, nice.
Get in. There were things which were very similar, and it was, you know, sometimes you had to find ways of saying different things. Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of Groundhog Day to some of it, wasn't there? But you know, it's never boring. Well, I won't say it's never boring, but you know, you kind of have to remember that you're in a privileged position when you're doing what we do, and when you have an audience. I think you have a responsibility to the audience to do your best and to not just phone it in, you know. So.
And then now going back to your personal football, at your peak, would you say you were any good at playing? You said you played center back.
Was I any good? Yeah, I would have been all right. Yeah, you know, I didn't always take it as seriously as I should have. You know, particularly as a teenager when you learned about.
Ooh, wow.
Ooh, when you learned about beer and things like that. So. But I always enjoyed playing. It's hard to know, isn't it? You know, if you dedicate yourself to something, could you have done better? What's that? But yeah,
I'm assuming your career stopped you from playing seriously, just, you know, getting a real job and all that.
Yeah, life.
Yeah,
life.
Ooh,
what a goal! Holy
Mickey.
shit! That's a great goal.
That's just a preview for next season.
Well, I hope he scores a few like that. That'd be amazing.
Another question that's been asked. Now, we all have heard of James' hair in the past. What was your hair like when you were in your prime?
I used to have kind of like, in my prime, it would have been a bit like... a little bit like Morrissey when he was in the Smiths, that kind of quiff, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, quite ludicrous, actually. That was it at its prime. That was the best it ever got for me. And I was about 20, I would say, when that was going on.
Okay, now we're going to move on to a few questions from your career, spanning from start to finish in no order in particular. Now that's
going to be a penalty.
This is a question I've been wondering myself. It's actually my most anticipated one. What is your favorite Arsecast outro skit? The one that you enjoy recording the most out of all of them?
Here's a really honest answer for you. I haven't got a clue, because I forget stuff pretty quickly after I do it, you know.
Right.
I always like some of the Arshavin songs, but they were kind of in the podcast itself. But the ones in the outro, I don't remember them really from one week to the next, because there've been so many, and people often say, "Oh, I love that bit that you did in that podcast," or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh, cool," but I actually don't remember that, so I don't know. What's your favorite one?
Amari Bischoff, Private Eye. Something about the voice, the way you do it, it's perfect. What a strange transfer that was. Oh, that's up there. Oh my god!
Look at that.
Wow.
Look at that for a goal. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to watch a replay of this.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I want to see that.
I think that's a back heel.
That was, yeah. German FA, I hope you're watching. Oh my god.
Oh yeah. Do you know what though? I'll be perfectly honest, I've got no idea how I did it.
You're not supposed to tell anybody that.
I was just mashing buttons. Yeah, I like Amari Bischoff PI because, it's a bit weird and surreal, and it doesn't have to mean anything. It always tends to mean something, but it doesn't have to. That's the great thing about the character.
Right, right. Okay, so a few questions from the chat, quick fire ones. What's the best trip you've ever gone to do a live Arscast? To see fans or a blogger, anything in specific?
I think the New York one was amazing. That was a really cool weekend because it was New York, which is such a great place. But then also we beat Chelsea 3-0.
Yes, that was an amazing
game. Unfortunately, it empowered Chelsea to change their tactics and then go on and win the league.
We don't need to talk about that part.
Yeah, but that was really cool because people came out. It was great fun. Let's do this. And New York is just a fucking mental place to have fun in, you know. So get out of here, Mustafi.
Did you do any like touristy things when you were in New York? Like, you know, visit Statue of Liberty, Empire State, anything like that?
Did I? I got on the Staten Island ferry. That was good. Went over to Staten Island and just came back again. But the view was pretty cool, and went to the Met, to the museum and stuff like that. The Empire State. I wasn't, you know, just not mad for all the queuing and stuff like that. So
yeah, of course.
So, you know, the hotel where I was right by the Empire, or close enough to the Empire State Building so I could see it, you know, so it was just out my window. So so I thought, nah. But no, just walking around. I think the best thing about New York is just walking around the streets.
The pace is a little different from Dublin, I'm guessing. Just everybody's in a rush.
Just a little bit. The scale is slightly different as well.
Yeah. And then Apju Huang is asking, I'm sure you're going to cover this week, but the news about Usmanov this morning possibly selling his shares to Kroenke, how do you feel about that? Terrified, indifferent?
Yeah, it's a bit worrying because he would then have full control, which means he could take the club private. So, I mean, I'm no fan of Usmanov or Kroenke, but it would be better for Arsenal if there were more than one owner, you know.
Of course, yeah.
So it's a bit of a worry.
I don't know if you know.
The problem is who's going to buy the shares, you know.
They're saying he's. Oh, nice check. They're saying he's going to sell it to Kroenke. That was the news this morning. Not just to anybody, but Kroenke specifically.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Nobody else will buy the shares because why would you spend hundreds of millions of pounds on something that you would have no control in?
Nah.
You know, Kroenke won't let anyone else on the board.
He's not even on the board, you know, metaphorically. And then, do you think under Unai Emery, Ozil and Mkhitaryan will fit in well together, or do you think it's going to be a situation where one's going to have to sit out? And by one, I mean Mkhitaryan's going to have to sit out.
I don't know. That's the great thing about this season is that we don't know how it's going to go.
I'm hoping Unai Emery can light a fire over everybody and everything works out.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all going to have to work hard. You know, they all have something to prove to a new manager. So that's the good thing about it. That's the really positive thing is that they all have to prove to him that they're worth a place in the team, and that when they get in the team, they're worth staying there. You know, so I think Arsene Wenger had his favourites down the years, and that's normal and understandable. But the new guy has got to make up his own mind on all these players. So,
of course,
I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. The friendlies this week might be a bit interesting, just to see what kind of team he's going to play.
Yeah, I'm thinking we'll see a more full strength team, more or less, besides our World Cup players. We're going to jump back into your career because that's all the questions from chat for now. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but your career trajectory was radio host to DJ to voiceover in Arsenal, or was it DJ then radio?
It was radio DJ from the time I was 16. So I was working on pirate radio stations in Dublin. So I was doing that till I was about 21, and nightclub DJing as well. And then I ended up, after a car accident, working in like an ISP, sort of a manager and technical support. And then moved to Spain. I'd always done voiceover stuff, but I moved to Spain then and worked over there for a while. And while I was over there, I set up Arseblog. So yeah, it's been a bit all over the place. There's been no huge, like, amazing plan or anything. It's just
might kind of happen.
Just kind of, yeah, it just all kind of happened, you know. I'm very much of the make it up as you go along school.
Now, the next question, I think you kind of answered it, but what made you quit being a radio host / DJ? That was just moving to Spain?
No, I mean, I got in a car crash. I couldn't work for about 9 months.
Okay.
When I got better again, real life gets in the way, and you know, radio presenting at that point was not the most lucrative or what's the word I'm looking for here? Frequent work, you know,
right?
Consistent work. So I had to do something. I had to do a real job, you know.
So then, teaching, just for those who don't know, correct me if I'm wrong as well, Andrew. When you moved to Barcelona, you taught English to Spanish students, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so is Arseblog this? Oh my God, he's not signing any contracts after that. Is Arseblog what made you quit doing that, or was it something else?
No, I mean, I didn't start making any money out of Arseblog until I moved back to Ireland. So I just did it because it was kind of the only thing to do in the place I was living, you know. It was quite fun at times, you know, particularly if the kids wanted to learn. Oh, here we go. Oh,
no penalty. No penalty.
Oh, come on.
Anyways, back to your answer for the English teaching. What made you stop doing it?
Yeah, I stopped doing it because I think I found a different job. Ooh. Actually. Offside.
Do you care to share what that was, or is it private?
No, it's not private, but it's just more boring. I think I was working for eBay, managing their fraud section, which was outsourced to a company in Barcelona. And so I managed a team of people from all over Europe to look after people who, you know, who would just fall victim to eBay fraud.
Right. That was a lot more rampant, I think, back then.
Yeah. Like, for example, there'd be... What was the trick people used to do all the time? They would say... It was before, like, iPhones or anything like that, but they put up, like, a fairly high value.
Ooh.
They put up a fairly high value item. Sorry, that was absolutely filthy, I know. And they would say, you know, Motorola, blah, 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 you know, phone. But somewhere in the small print, they would put in the description of the item that it was just literally a picture of the phone. Just a picture of the phone. And so people would get an envelope and think, oh, my phone is coming. And they'd open up the thing, and it was a picture, and they go crazy, and they'd open up a fraud case, and then we'd have to look at the original listing, and it would say it was actually, you just bought a picture. You know, you should have read the small print.
Ouch.
Which seems a bit shit, but
yeah, that couldn't have been good PR for eBay, I'm guessing, back then.
No, I think there might have been something where they got a certain percentage of it back.
Yeah. So the next question is from Spencer Drangus. If you couldn't podcast about football, and let's just say whatever podcast you did instead was guaranteed to be a success, same level that you currently have, what would you be podcasting about?
There's a really good question. What would I be podcasting about? I don't know if I'd be podcasting about anything in particular, but, you know, having access to really interesting people would be, I think, where I'd like to be. You know, I did do another podcast for a while. where I interview people, sort of an interview show, you know, conversational show. I mean, I interviewed Mark Maron on it. I'm sure lots of people will listen to Mark Maron's podcast. So that kind of a thing, I think. I don't know that I don't know that I feel that strongly about anything else. Like, I wouldn't want to be podcasting about politics at the moment because it's just all so horrible. And you open yourself up to a world of weirdos, particularly if it was as successful as Arseblog is, you know?
So then, for discussion's sake, let's just assume you have this magical ability to get anybody in your chair that you want. Does that change what you'd podcast about in any way? Like, if you wanted to get the president on the line, you could.
If I wanted to. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I could, yeah, I don't think I would, to be honest. I'm not sure you get a very honest podcast there.
Of course.
Hector. Oh.
Good thing that was Hector. Pre-hairdo.
Yeah, pre-hairdo. I think maybe music as well. I could probably do something about music.
At what exact moment in your career did you sit down and say, okay, I can do blogging full-time?
It was actually when Arseblog was bought by an American company called Ole Ole.
I think I remember those days.
Yeah, they bought the site and they were paying me, you know. Oh, what a tackle. What a tackle. Because I had a meeting with the guy and he said, look, we want to pay you. And I had a figure in mind and he said, you know, before I could even get it out, he gave me another figure, which was about twice as much as what I was going to ask for. So that was like, okay.
Good thing you didn't say the figure first.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, I realized I was, you know, Arseblog was something that probably had some value or could be monetized, but I didn't really know how to do it, you know. And then they went broke and went bankrupt and what have you. So I had to sort of go on my own and figure it out. So it was once that happened that I knew that there was potential there for earning and for advertising and all that kind of stuff, that I figured, well, I was hoping that was the case, because otherwise I didn't know what to do, you know, whether I would have to go and get a real job or something like that. So,
right.
And I was obviously trying to avoid that as much as possible, because it's sort of at a point where you go, well, I don't know what it is I do, you know. If you tell me to go out tomorrow and get a job go to the job shop and get a job, it's like, well, I don't know what it is that I do anymore, you know, apart from this. So it's hard to put yourself in the job bracket, you know. So that was when it was, and that was about 2010 when that all went when they went bankrupt and that all went tits up, you know.
Right. So then, in the rise and success of Arseblog, besides anyone on your team, like for example, besides James, besides Tim Stillman, besides Andrew Allen, who's been the greatest help to Arseblog?
Tom. Tom is he looks after a lot of the technical stuff on the site. So he wrote our comment system, and you know, he sort of looks after the servers and all that kind of stuff. He's the brains of it from that point of view. So he's been, you know, from almost day one in the site, he's been somebody who's had a huge influence on how successful it's been. So yeah, he's the guy.
And then who's your favorite person that you've interviewed, football related, or had on your podcast even?
Who's the favorite? I think Ian Wright has got to be up there, to be honest. He's just so ebullient and so much fun and so enthusiastic about football, and he really loves Arsenal. And you know, I know he gets a hard time from some sections of fans who think, because he has been critical of the club in the past, he's somehow a traitor or what have you, you know. But he really does love Arsenal, and he just wants the best for it, and that comes across when you speak to him and when you listen to him, and just his willingness to be that open and what have you on the podcast has been great. But you know, I'm always extremely grateful to
goal? Yes.
To all the people who give their time to come on the podcast, you know. So I don't necessarily want to single out one person, but you asked me, and you know, he's just great fun. So, okay, time to go ultra attacking.
I don't know if you've seen the clips from the World Cup recently last summer, but he was driving the Fox presenters absolutely mad in the States, just with the way he was saying things. And when England made the semifinals, I think he left the studio mid-recording, and he was just like, I can't be here. I need to be out there with the fans. It was great.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Were they... You should look up the clip. It was live, so he just like got up and he's just like, I'm sorry, guys. I can't be here right now. And he left a note on his desk where he was sitting, and he just wrote down, it's coming home. Yeah. The puzzled faces on Alexi Lalas's face just as he's watching this happen. Like, is this real? Is this happening?
Yeah,
it was great.
He's a character for sure.
Now, how does it feel? Now, okay, this question was asked by Mein Bergkamp, and I don't know if it's too truthful, to be honest, but how does it feel to be the default go-to for Arsenal fans everywhere? And I say it's not true because I think Mr. Ornstein has eclipsed you in the last few years.
Well, I think when it comes to transfer stuff, certainly...
Mustafi.
Losing to Mustafi, okay. Yeah, David obviously has great connections when it comes to transfers and everything else. So, you know, I'm quite happy to defer to him in that sense.
Right. Yeah, I was only joking, but oh my God, you're still in this.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I think it's great that people read and they listen, and I'm always very grateful for people for doing that and for doing it consistently and on a daily basis. And you know, I do it, and I hope that people enjoy it. You know, it's not always easy. It's not always fun to read about your club being in the shit and what have you. So
especially with Arsenal fans.
I'm grateful that people have stuck with it as well during difficult times. You know, because that's part of football as well. That it is a thing that provides you with ups and downs. You know.
Yeah.
You've got to have the rough with the smooth a little bit.
So after you've written a blog or after you've said something on the Rcast, after you go, I know you keep an active look on your emails and an active look on all your comments. Have you ever changed your mind off of reading what people are saying? Like, I know you've been getting some flack for the Gazetas. For lack of a better word, the Gazetas hate. A lot of people have been criticizing you.
I don't hate him. I just think he's a dickhead.
But have you ever changed your mind after looking at the reaction to something you've said or something you've done?
You know, I when I write or when I talk on the podcast, I always just try and give my opinion. So, if I'm factually wrong about something and somebody says it to me, or somebody comes along and says, "Look, you're wrong about this because X, Y, and Z," I'd be really foolish if I didn't pay attention to that. You know,
right?
So I'm always open to my mind being changed on things, but when it just comes to my own opinion, I'll take other people's opinions on board, and certainly it might shape my own opinion or whatever. But I can always stand behind what I say, I think, you know.
Yeah.
So and look, a little bit of the Gazeta stuff is a bit tongue in cheek.
People are comparing it to I don't know if you've seen House of Cards, but I've read that they think you're kind of making the whole Gazeta situation seem like it is House of Cards, where especially when Wenger was still around. But yeah.
Who is Gazetas? Is Frank Underwood? Is he?
Yeah, Gazetas is Frank Underwood. Arsene Wenger was the guy Underwood replaced as president, I guess. I forgot his name.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. Once Gazidis doesn't turn out to be Kevin Spacey, I think everybody will be happy, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that guy. You might not have to deal with him too much longer, given the news this morning.
Well, yeah, maybe he's off to AC Milan. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be crazy. But I'll leave that content for you on your podcast next week.
Thank you.
Now, are there any other Arsenal podcasts that you listen to regularly?
Yeah.
And I mean like week in, week out regularly, not just maybe once a month or something.
The Arsenal Vision podcast is the one I listen to on a regular basis. That's really the only one that I listen to, because I don't have a huge amount of time for Arsenal podcasts, and I'm kind of not that I want to live in a bubble or anything, but I'm just kind of happy not broadening. Not that I don't want to broaden my horizons. It sounds terrible, like I want to live in this insular Arsenal Arseblog bubble, but that's not it. It's just kind of, I talk about Arsenal every day. I write about Arsenal every day. For each podcast I talk, so I kind of need
a little break from Arsenal.
Of break from Arsenal along the way. So I'm happy to hear other opinions and perspectives on things, and I think the Arsenal Vision podcast gives me that with the various people involved, and then I can listen to other podcasts and I can listen to other stuff and take my mind off Arsenal when I'm out walking the dogs and all that kind of stuff.
Cool. And the next question now, it's from Burkham Wonderland. I don't know if it's related to the podcast, the Burkham Wonderland. It could just be somebody with that name. But do you ever think, fuck it, I can't be arsed to write a Arseblog or record a podcast or blog today? Do you ever have days like that? And then how do you go beyond that and just write a quality blog or record a quality podcast anyways?
Sometimes with the blog, there are days, particularly weekend days, when you might have been out the night before and you've had a few beers and you think, oh, I could do it just lying in bed for a while here. Right. It'd be nice not to have to get up and write a blog 7 days a week, because maybe, I'm not sure if people take it for granted or if they just assume that it will be there, but it is 7 days a week, every week, and it's Saturday and it's Sunday, and
for 16 years.
There are days. Yeah, so it is a commitment, but at the same time, I feel like I've made a commitment to the readership to do this, and not that I owe them, but I have a responsibility. They've been people who read the site have been very good to me in terms of how much they've supported the site and how much they've supported our events and our books and our Patreon and all that kind of stuff. So it just wouldn't sit right with me to not do a blog just because I couldn't be arsed, that way.
Right.
If there was a good reason, if I was sick or if I wasn't well or if I genuinely wasn't able to, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But just not being arsed, that's not a good enough reason for me. So you haul yourself out of bed and you get it done. So there's the answer.
Speaking of that, funny story. Now, when I wake up for work usually, when I'm getting ready to head off, that's when you upload your blog usually every day. I don't know what time that is on average, but there are some days, like I'm just sitting there waiting. I'm like, okay, there's no blog yet. Something must have happened to Andrew.
Yes, like what's happened to him?
Where's the blog?
Has he been? Yeah. It depends. I'm up a lot earlier these days because of the new dog. She gets me up earlier in the morning, so it is happening a bit earlier. It'll be, what the fuck? How did you miss that? It'll probably be a bit later in the winter, but we'll see.
Now, I have a feeling I might know the answer to this one, but what's the hardest blog you've ever had to write emotionally?
Emotionally? God, that's a really good question. There've been a few that have been difficult emotionally, like when Cesc left, for example. That was a difficult one because I always really loved Cesc. I didn't find, let's say, Arsene Wenger's writing about his departure that emotional from being an upset point of view, because I think we knew it was coming, Champions League final wasn't even like that. I don't... Oh.
Mustafi.
I think maybe some of the defeats which were really disheartening, you know, like where you realise that as much as you wanted Arsene Wenger to win things again, it wasn't going to happen, you know. So I think maybe the one where we lost at Old Trafford after beating Leicester.
The 8-2? Oh, the Leicester.
No.
Okay, yeah.
We just beat Leicester and we'd scored that goal, the Danny Welbeck goal. Remember, he scored in the last second with a header. Yeah, exactly. And then the next game we went to Man United and we were absolutely shite.
And United had a subpar team as well, I think.
Oh, had a really bad team that day. I think Marcus Rashford was starting one of his first games, and I don't know, some guy playing right back who got booked after about 5 minutes, and we didn't cause them any problems, and it was just a really tepid performance. So I think something like that, you know. What one did you have in mind?
The one you wrote it recently, I think it was just roughly about a year ago, but the Barcelona one after that, they had that attack in Barcelona. I felt like you really poured your heart and soul into that one. Obviously for your personal connections in Barcelona.
Yeah, that was a bit of a weird one. I suppose, they're difficult, aren't they?
Something happens in real life, yeah.
And you can't, you know, there are more. I know certainly after the attack in Paris in the nightclub, the Bataclan.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up that morning and reading about what was going on and just being completely unable to write about anything else. I couldn't write about football that morning.
Oh.
So yeah.
Then there's sorry, do you have more to say on that?
No, I mean, I guess that's part of it. Over the course of 16 years, sometimes real life and people's experiences will get in the way of football, you know. But maybe that perspective's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think even your regular readers, they also need it. I know you're everybody's Arsenal source, but especially for me, this is true. But you're also just a constant in some people's lives. And then when nice goal. And then when something serious happens in real life, sometimes it's good to hear from a constant, like their perspective and their view on it.
Yeah.
Do you have any good stories or any crazy bets you've made with your brother, perhaps, for Arsenal games or anything in general?
Any bets I've made? I try not to bet. I find that, you know, the prevalence of betting and all that doesn't sit easy with me.
Nothing
in football.
Well, I think the question means like friendly bets you make with your friends, not with like companies or anything like that.
God, no, I can't remember. I can't think of anything, to be honest.
So the next question is, have you, throughout your 16 years writing Arseblog, have you ever come close to quitting, where you were just deciding, you know, I can't do this anymore, or I don't want to do this anymore?
No.
That's good.
No. I just haven't, because I you know, there are days, like, you know, people think, okay, it's a great job, and it is a great job, but like any job, it's work, and there are some days when your work is good, and some days when your work is not quite as good, and there are days when your work feels like a pain in the arse, and that's true. But I do remember how...
Oh my god. Oh.
That's an own goal. You know, I understand how lucky I am and how privileged I am to do what I do, and for people to enjoy what I do. So that snaps you back into reality, you know, if you do have any thoughts about like, fuck this, you know.
Yeah.
Which are very rare anyway, I should say. You know, I'm not having to talk myself down off the ledge or anything.
Yeah, so have you ever, like, been in a public setting and had anybody either dismiss or belittle your profession for what it is? Like, they don't take it seriously, or they think it's a joke profession, quote unquote?
No, not really. There was a clip on the radio where the guy sort of took the mickey out of the name Arseblog.
Why would you name it that?
Back.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. I had it on the podcast. That's the only thing I really get is people like still just go Arseblog and laugh at the name, which is fine.
It's a great name.
Yeah. It's just, again, it was just make it up as you go along, and it happened to work and it happened to stick. So, but no, I mean there were times, of course, where you go, I write a blog, and people will go, well, what's a blog?
Yeah.
Nowadays, everybody knows what a blog is, and what's a podcast, and now everybody knows what a podcast is. So
yeah.
It's about getting people getting used to the idea of you doing what you're doing, and I think I would say maybe there have been some times where you would get like perhaps some established journalists looking down their nose a little bit at not just Arseblog but at websites created by fans and the influence that they have and everything else. But that's rare as well, to be honest.
You said Arsenal, the club itself, took a while to warm up to you, right? If I'm remembering from the early days?
Maybe. I mean, I think, to be fair to Arsenal, they were one of the... They were one of the first clubs to actually, certainly via the website, the guys that run the website are really excellent guys. I've known them for a good few years now, and they were they were really quick to cotton on to the fact that blogs were actually important and influential and not going anywhere, and not necessarily a threat to what they were trying to do. At the official site, that there could be like a sort of harmony in a way.
I don't think you've ever answered this. You might have, but how did you become an Arsenal fan?
I think, I have a theory, because I don't ever remember making the choice, but because I lived in England,
yeah,
as a young Irish guy in the 70s, Arsenal had a lot of Irish players, and I think that's what it was. I was a kid who was really interested and loved football and loved playing football. And I think I just identified with all the Irish players at Arsenal. So that's my best guess.
So would you take Arsenal winning the Champions League or Ireland winning the World Cup if you had to pick one?
Oh, Arsenal winning the Champions League.
Is it even close, or is it just...
No.
But, okay, let's say Arsenal had won Champions League. Would you still pick Champions League again, or Ireland winning the World Cup?
Yeah, another Champions League.
I did. Is there a specific match that you've seen throughout all the years that doesn't get talked about enough? And this came from Fallonx76.
Is there one that doesn't get talked about enough? I think...
Oh, you read that?
The night we won the league at Old Trafford in 2002 is one of the great Arsenal performances, and it doesn't necessarily get the kind of credit it deserves for what we did that night against the team that we did it at Old Trafford as well. It was a really brilliant performance, and there was a lot of players missing for Arsenal that night. There was no Dennis Bergkamp, for example, no Thierry Henry. Canu and Wiltord, I think, started the game up front, and it was just a brilliant performance against a team that had won the league for the last or the previous 3 seasons. So it's clearly a game that's gone down in history, but I'm just not sure it gets the credit it deserves or the merit it deserves for what it helped us achieve.
The next question is, if you could have Arsene Wenger on your podcast and you had a truth serum that would only last for one question that Arsene had to answer completely honestly and fully, what would you ask him?
Why did we sign Park?
Do you buy into the stories that we signed Park for marketing reasons?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
It's ludicrous anyway, to think that selling shirts would somehow make you enough money to justify a transfer. Park wasn't a guy who, I don't know, if we sold 100 Arsenal shirts in Korea that season, I'd be surprised. So no, it was nothing to do with marketing. It was just a very strange decision. Actually, I would if I could have a go over on that question, I would ask him to explain to me in full the events of the summer of 2011 when Fabregas left and when Nasri left, and why
God.
we left
You're
it
bringing
so
back
late.
Dark memories.
Yeah. So I think that would be the one that I would ask him, because I think there was a lot going on that summer that we haven't heard about. There were things happening on many levels, at board level and managerial level, and it was a mess. Like, how does an organization like Arsenal make such a mess of a summer like that?
As Arsene famously said, "One day I will tell you." So let's hope that day is sooner rather than later.
I hope he does.
Yeah, that summer I was still in high school, and as high schoolers are immature, when Arsene Wenger came out with that headline that Cesc and Nasri will 100% stay at the club, the first thing I did was go to my United and Chelsea supporting friends and was like, see, they're staying. I told you guys, and then only for both of them to leave a few weeks later.
Oh no.
Dark times. Quickly to touch on your points. Now, you've heard of Christian Pulisic, right? The American that plays for Dortmund?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so shirt sales, it's crazier than you imagine, especially in a country like Korea. Like, I'm sure they sold hundreds of shirts for Park Chu-young easily, like without question. I don't know what it is. It's just countries like that. Not saying it's justified or it would make sense, but they do sell a lot of shirts.
They do. They do. But the deals that the clubs do with, the kit manufacturers mean that they're not going to get anything like the cost of a transfer back.
Right. No, agreed. So. Entirely. This is from THW Matthew. What's the proudest you've ever felt to be an Arsenal fan? Be it a match or an event or winning a trophy?
The proudest. I think whenever you win something, you always feel really proud and happy and what have you. So there was a weird pride in the champions, the night of the Champions League, when we lost to Barcelona. There was something quite special about that at the end of the game, when all the Arsenal fans, they
felt that pride instead of disappointment of losing a final.
Yeah, exactly. Even though we'd lost, everyone stood and everyone stayed behind, everyone sang and everything else. So that was really quite something. That was a bit spine-tingling, I have to say, thinking back on it. So that was it. But, whenever you win something and, winning the league unbeaten was amazing as well. I think it's generally tied in with success, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there are little small moments, when the club does something good or does the right thing by a player or stands up for something. Those things are good as well. Because a football club goes beyond the pitch, and it goes beyond the local community and everything else. So it's good to have a reminder sometimes that, as a club, it can have a really positive impact on not just us as fans, but on society, local community, and everything else. So those things are good too. This is from DryXO, would you stop going to the Emirates if they played Phil Collins non-stop rematch? It's just no,
his greatest hits album.
I would just go in as the game was beginning.
When was the last time you've been to the Emirates?
I was there for Arsene Wenger's last game, the Burnley game.
Now, when he said, "I will miss you," did you cry?
No, I didn't cry, but I was, you know, you'd have to have a hard heart not to go. You did.
I'm not ashamed to admit I did. I was cheering up.
That's fair enough. Look, I got no problem.
Yeah.
I got no problem with that.
Well, to many fans my age, all we've known is Arseblog. I wasn't around for Graham at all.
Oh, what a goal.
Now, if you could experience a particular performance or match through the eyes of an Arsenal player, which player or match would you choose? And that's from Brainfeeder on Reddit.
So if I could choose an Arsenal match and experience it through the eyes of any Arsenal player who was playing in that match?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll give you mine, just so maybe it might jog your memory a bit. But do you remember that game against Aston Villa where I think Cesc was injured and they subbed him on and he scored 2 goals?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to.
He went off injured again.
Yeah, I would just love to relive that match because that was, along with that Van Persie and Cesc double goal that they did against Spurs. That's one of my favorite memories of him.
Oh, that was such a I was at that game. That was that was such that was a brilliant game. That double goal thing was fucking brilliant. Let me think about this one. I wonder if maybe the Liverpool game in the unbeaten season, we'd just been knocked out of the Champions League by Chelsea and we'd just been knocked out of the FA Cup by Man United. We played Liverpool, we were 2-1 down at half time, and Thierry Henry scored a hat-trick in the game. We won 4-2. I think experiencing that game through the brain and the exhausted legs of Thierry Henry, because he played, I think, in the other games as well. So,
nice.
Oh, what a goal!
Was that the match where that clip from where he's rounding Jamie Carragher comes from, or is that the first leg? Yeah, that one.
That's that one. That's that one.
He still hasn't recovered to this day.
That'd be cool. Yeah, or even winning the title in '98. Tony Adams scoring the final goal against Everton. That would have been really something. That was sort of not quite a redemption for Tony Adams, but I'd say as an experience for him, that was really something else.
Now, we touched on this next question a little earlier when we were talking about Ian Wright, but one of the things that made Ian Wright get some negative PR was when he was talking about foreign fans. I'm sure you remember that when it was going on last season.
I saw it briefly, yeah. I think it was slightly taken out of context in a way.
Yeah, he's since apologized and clarified. But what is your overall view on foreign fans, and how do you feel about the fans that kind of gatekeep and say, unless you were born in North London or unless you were born and bred in Arsenal, you have no right to be an Arsenal fan, or I'm a bigger fan than you? How do you feel about that?
I kind of think that's stupid. Look, ultimately, I'm an Irish guy who started a website in Barcelona and continues to write it from Ireland about Arsenal, and I'm a foreign fan. I think it's amazing that Arsenal have fans all over the world. I think it's brilliant. The world is global, football is global, and I think it's incredible that we have fans from all over the world. We've got good fans and we've got bad fans, but the geography of those fans is not the reason why they're good or bad fans.
Penalty? Yes.
Oh no.
I'm not very good at penalties, so don't worry.
Thought that could be a red card, actually.
So essentially, it's just an afterthought for you. Where you're located or where you're from, whether you've been to London or not, doesn't really matter to you.
I don't care. Yeah, makes no difference to me.
Okay.
Pressure's on. Oh no, that's a really.
I swear I wasn't giving you that one. I'm just really not good at penalties. Now. I don't remember this, but somebody was asking if you could bring back the I am a Abue at the end of the Arscast. Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah, there was a character that I used to do as basically Emmanuel Abue. And it was just a silly voice doing Abue, and he used to do his top three random top three things. if I remember correctly. But I think sometimes a character has its day, and it's best left there. And I think that's the case with this one. You know.
What new signing are you most excited about?
Torreira. Just because
is it just the youth?
Yeah, the youth. The fact that I didn't know very much about him. So he's entirely new to me in terms of what kind of a player he is. You know, we all saw a bit of him in the World Cup, and he looked good, and he looks like he's got decent qualities. So yeah, him, and just because I think midfield has been such a big problem for us in recent years, that I'm excited to see what he can do in that sense.
Almost.
Yeah. The others, I'm cautiously optimistic, shall we say, about the others. Like Lichtsteiner, I think I don't know what he's going to do in the Premier League or how he's going to get on.
See, I don't think he's going to start necessarily. I think he's just going to be offside. I think he's just going to be cover for Bayern when he's now playing.
Yeah,
so I'm totally fine with that, even if he's 35, because our previous option was having no backup at all, or Maitland-Niles being shifted out there. So I have no problem with Lichtsteiner. Speaking of youth,
go on.
I was going to say, besides the ones who have already kind of come through, like Maitland-Niles or even Nketiah, who's your next guess for who's going to come through the academy?
I think they have really high hopes for Smith Rowe, Emil Smith Rowe.
Yeah, he's been training with the first team during preseason.
Yeah, he's gone on the tour, and he seems to really have something about him as a player. I know that they're excited about him.
Now, when Arsenal announced its sleeve sponsor in Visit Rwanda, that also brought about a lot of controversy, especially from other partners that Arsenal has. Like, I remember a Dutch company was saying they weren't happy about Arsenal's Visit Rwanda. Now, maybe not the Visit Rwanda in general, but everything, the Fly Emirates, the Rwanda. How do you justify in your own head these sponsorships that are very lucrative but end up with a lot of nations and companies that violate human rights and stuff like that?
It is the moral gymnastics that we all have to go through, unfortunately, in this day and age. You know, Fly Emirates and, you know, things like homosexuality being outlawed in the Emirates, you know, shouldn't sit right with anybody.
Of course,
So, you know, ideally you would want your club to have sponsors and partners who don't have any issues like that. But I'm just not sure that it's possible, you know. What can you do about it? What can you actually do other than give up and deny yourself something that you love, you know? So I don't know. I mean, the Rwanda thing is interesting as well. It's a big surprise. I'd heard about it about 3 or 4 weeks before it happened. And if you went Googling for Visit Rwanda, you didn't find anything.
Right.
There was no website or anything like that. So I was a bit dubious as to whether the information was true. But, you know, it turns out it was. Again, without being a real expert in the politics of Rwanda, it's hard for me to be definitive. You know, on the one hand, you wonder if the money that Rwanda is spending on sponsorship with Arsenal might be better spent on other things in the country, but then there's always something else that money could be spent on, you know, where you want to go. But if it helps boost the tourist trade to Rwanda and it has benefits for the country and it creates jobs, then I don't know. It's a double-edged sword in a way.
So, if as a fan, if you could choose from I mean, I don't even know if there's anything consciously morally in the clear these days, but would you rather the club have less money through these sponsorships but gets, I guess, upstanding sponsors, or would you rather the club have more money to spend and get sponsors like Fly Rwanda or Fly Emirates?
Yeah. Yeah, look, I don't know, really. I mean, we all want the team to be competitive. We all want to have the best players. And maybe that's the trade-off. The trade-off is you have to sell your soul a little bit as a club and as a fan. And how far you can live with that is up to each individual person, I think.
It's fair enough. I know in the States, taxpayers pay for new stadiums when NFL teams want to build new ones. Stan Kroenke's actually famous for that over here. So I get oh my gosh.
Scramble.
So then, since my our Twitch channel is primarily a gaming channel, I'm going to ask you a few gaming-related questions as well.
Okay.
Now, I noticed you were playing Rocket League before we got on. That's quite a regular on this channel. How do you feel about it? Like, what are your thoughts on playing it, the community? Do you ever get into fights with people sarcastically saying what to say?
No, I don't get involved in any of that. I just try and drive my little truck around and smash into people and score goals. You know, I don't take it as seriously as some people do.
Right.
I know it's a very popular game and it's quite fun actually. It's not the sort of thing I usually play, but Santi gets
Santi.
Oh, yes.
I miss him too.
So yeah, it's good. It's quite good fun. But I like a lot of the sort of open world games. You know, Fallout and Skyrim and that kind of stuff. I enjoy those.
How long have you played games? Is this just like a new thing with when the PS4 came out, or have you played games for a while?
No, I've played games since I was a kid. I'd like my first ZX Spectrum was my first computer, and I
don't even know what that is.
You'll have to look it up. It's a 48K personal computer that was released in the early 80s, and yeah, you've probably got more computing power in your fridge these days than this has.
So is there like any specific games that you've been playing that you want to like just share, give a shout out to? Any ones you're particularly enjoying?
No, what did I just finish playing? God of War, which was all right. It wasn't great, to be honest.
Have you played the other God of Wars? Is this your first one?
That was my first one.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah. They just recently like reskinned the whole game to a different style. Oh yes! No. All out attack time.
Okay, time for Danny Welbeck.
Oh no, not Welbeck. Do you have on FIFA specifically, like the video game, do you have a favorite Arsenal player that you've loved playing as throughout the years of all time?
He was never my favorite player in real life, but Theo Walcott was always great because he was so quick.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Danny.
He fell over, matching the real life.
But the ball's supposed to go in then, you know?
Yeah. I used to always play FIFA with my father, and he would curse out the Walcott because he would just always say, he's never done this in real life. How come he could do it in the game? Now, do you play Football Manager at all? Or have you played Football Manager?
Yeah, I used to.
Now, in these playthroughs, do you just manage Arsenal, or do you do the, start out with a small club and work your way up?
No, I've got no interest in playing with anybody who isn't Arsenal.
Ah.
I think the little foul there put you off at the end.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have time to play things like Football Manager and Championship Manager anymore. They're just too involved, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It takes hours and hours and hours, and I don't have hours and hours and hours to play video games with anymore, so...
I don't know if you'd be interested, but they have. Oh no. They have a much smaller, compacted, like mobile versions or even touchscreen versions that take out all the extras where you can just get to the games. I don't know if you maybe enjoy that at all or not.
No, not anymore. I used to like it, but not anymore. I think my days of Football Manager games are done.
So then, next question is a little bit broad, but where do you see technology going in the next 10 years?
Jesus, I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing more wearable stuff, and like I can tweet from behind my eye and shit like that. Like implanted technology, I guess, but that's just a guess. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, it's hard to predict.
Yeah, like more virtual reality, I think is inevitable, isn't it?
What's the biggest way technology has affected your work? Is it just accessibility to your viewership, greater accessibility to your content?
Yeah, I guess just the fact that the technology and
come on, no.
I just think the fact that the world has got smaller because of the fact that the internet has got bigger,
Yeah.
And that allows us to do more and do better things. And
okay, then I just have a last-minute question from the chat. They want to know, which one was a bigger, difficult pill to swallow? Was it 2007 and 2008 season, otherwise known as Project Youth, or was it the 15 and 16 season? I think that was Nasri's breakout season. No, it wasn't. 15 and 16. That was the Leicester City season.
15 and 16 was the season Leicester won the league.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a huge opportunity missed. 2007, 2008, I think there were some extenuating circumstances because of injuries that we picked up and players we were missing. Not just Eduardo after he got his injury, but Sanya and Flamini were injured as well. Rosicki got injured too. So
I remember it came down to the last two games, even against United and Chelsea.
I think Owen Hargreaves scored a free kick or something, didn't he? It was annoying, but I think 15-16 was the real opportunity. When Chelsea weren't there, no City, no Man United, no Liverpool, no Tottenham. No, Tottenham really, they were there, but you knew they weren't going to do it. So
they were there, but they weren't.
So that's the one. I think 15-16 would have been an amazing title win. But maybe we'd be in a different place now if we'd won it. So who knows?
Yeah, originally I was 2007, 2008, but upon reflection on that season, I think that was the season where Arsene Wenger's relationship with the fans permanently broke. It was never the same after that.
Yeah, I agree. Because everyone knew what a missed opportunity it was, you see. So
yeah.
So there we go.
Anyways, thank you for joining me, Andrew. I know you have a very busy schedule. I'm very happy to have met you and to have gotten to interview you. For people listening and watching, Arseblog has recently launched a Patreon. They have all kinds of interviews on there. Liam Brady's the most notable one of recent times. Andrew, if you want to give any information on that. I'm sure you have it memorized by now.
Yeah, well, look, it's just patreon.com/arseblog, and it does help us do all the stuff that we do on the site, and make all the podcasts and pay all our writers and all that kind of stuff. But people don't have to feel obliged in any way to sign up. Just keep visiting the site and listening to the podcasts. If that's what you want to do, that's great as well.
All right, thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Andrew, for being here, and I'll catch everybody next time.